All right, thank you guys for your patience while we got our reception set up. And I remembered to plug the camera in for the live stream. Otherwise, we would have had sound and absolutely no video. So thanks for your patience on YouTube if you're joining us that way. Very first thing, I would like to thank the Mississippi Humanities Council for supporting this event and for events like these all around the state. Now more than ever, we need to recognize the important work that the Humanities Council does to promote culture and history through grants, speakers, reading programs, education in prisons, museums, and many, many other programs. Each year, the Humanities Council asks colleges and universities around the state to name a faculty member to be recognized as the Humanities Teacher of the Year. TK, Chris Lee, has been selected by our faculty here at the W, and the Humanities faculty, as Teacher of the Year for 2026, and will be recognized at a ceremony in Jackson in March. But one of his duties, or one of his pleasures in that role, is to give a public lecture, which he has titled, "Not the Same Old Story, Learning How to Stop So You Can Start." Chris Lee is an associate professor of English, teaches undergraduate creative writing, playwriting, and literature, and serves in the graduate program for the MFA in creative writing and the MFA in theater education. He is the author of numerous plays, including Paper Thin, On How to Accommodate Marlowe's Frying Pan, Syndication, and Loose Hog. He is also an accomplished actor and director, winning National and Community Theater Best Actor Awards for his performance in the one-man play Underneath the Lintel, and is a poet with 2 collections, To Square a Circle and Scapegoat. He has worked closely with the Tennessee Williams Tribute to manage the 10-4-10 10-minute play contest, and has acted and directed in plays for the Starkville Community Theater, among many, many other accomplishments. This semester, he's on sabbatical, working on his 3rd collection of poems and other projects, yet he has graciously returned to campus to give this talk. So please join me in welcoming Chris Lee.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to those of you in here with me. Quite a number. I'm very touched. Thank you. As well as to those of you out there in the internet. I am glad that you could make it to my lecture, and I hope you feel that way when we're done. I say lecture because it is a lecture series after all, but I like to think of it, as I do in my classes, more along the lines of a conversation, albeit a predominantly one-sided conversation. But I say that as a way of distinguishing for you that, like any conversation, if you have something to say, if you feel the need to chime in or ask a question or have something to contribute, however the spirit may move you, to please do so. I consider that active engagement. And I'm already genetically predisposed to ramble and rabbit hole and chase after shiny things. So I will feel right at home. If you need to say something, you are certainly welcome to. You have the space and the freedom to do it. I'm not saying that you have to interrupt or interject, but if you do, it is okay to do so. Of course, whether or not you will have anything to contribute or to chime in about and so on depends a great deal on the pre-existing level of your working knowledge about crafting story or creative writing as it pertains to the subject of this talk, the title of which is Not the Same Old Story. Have you heard that expression before? I feel like you probably have. For me, it's doing double duty, a double shift here, because in its dual purpose on one level, it is addressing the common fear, I think, of any writer who struggles to find originality in their work, in their voice, or a style that is unique to their worldview, and on a deeper level, a more meta level, perhaps, it speaks to what keeps you from writing. The same old excuses we all make, the procrastination, the not knowing where to start, to thinking you can't find anything worth writing about. I believe that this is a sort of a pep talk of sorts in that regard, that I will be offering tried and true things that have worked for me based on my experience as a creative writer. But I recognize, because of sabbatical, if I have to admit, when I found out about this honor and staring down the holidays and getting back to my own work, that the title, I admit perhaps, is a little vague. and maybe got a little bit lost in translation. But if you know me, that's pretty much me, so nothing new. But to help you figure out exactly where we're going with this, a slightly more amended version. This better work. There we go. I did this on Canva because I was excited about it, and it's really hard moving Canva back into PowerPoint, but here we go. How to stop getting in your way, right, and how to start getting into the story. And these are tricks that work for me over my years of writing, and I really believe that they will have something of benefit to you. And that matters because I believe that good tricks, when used often enough, they become great tools. And great tools, after a while, become truths. And now, again, we're talking about creative writing, but I do believe it's applicable regardless, because I know some of you are writers. But I also know some of you are sitting there going, Chris, this all sounds great, fine and well for that creative writer, but that's not me. I don't write poems. I don't write plays. I try not to write very long sentences if I can help it. And that does beg the question, then what does this mean for me, right? And I am glad that I pretended you asked that question, because I think it means in a lot of ways the same thing for you as it does for the creative writer. I know I'm also a bit heady when it comes to conversations, but that works for me to come out of the cosmos into some new subject. Keeps me wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. But I do promise I know where I'm going, so if you just stick it out with me, you'll see what I mean in just about, 3 hours? How long is this supposed to be? 50 minutes? We'll see. But I think there are two kinds of people in the world, right? You are the creator, or you're the consumer, or you're the writer, or you're the reader. And you can be all four. You can be 2 or 3, any combination. The point I'm making, though, is that those dualities, I don't think can survive on their own. And this matters when it comes to art, the creative writing arts, sculpture, dance, whatever kind of art you want, because I believe all art seeks verisimilitude, which is this attempt to represent reality, right? And the positions that art takes in doing that creates a living lab from which we can then look at that reality safely and learn the truths about ourselves, about people, about a culture. And these tricks that I'm going to show you today, and I do call them tricks for a reason, they'll become tools and maybe even truths eventually. I think that though they may seem simple and elementary, that regardless, I feel that that works to your advantage, to come at it with a simple and open mind, to be receptive, and that in small measure they will prove what benefits they can give to you, whether you are a writer or a reader, creator or consumer. Those labels matter less when you think about the fact that we are all part of the same big capital S story, right? What we do affects each other. And I think that whether you apply it to paper or to your person, you will discover a practical magic about these very silly, simple, fun activities, because that's why you have 2 pieces of paper. You don't get to sit idly by. Not today. If I have to work, you have to work, right? That's the way I'm looking at it. But let's go ahead and dig in, shall we? Let's get to what practical magics there are. Now, before we do that, I want you to take that piece of paper, one piece of paper, and tear it in half. It's a satisfying sound, isn't it? Oh, my goodness. I think you can still make it work. Carefully tear it in half. And then take one of those strips and tear it into 2 pieces. Would you like another piece of paper? Okay. I know you've had a long day. It's probably fun to rip into it. And then, I like that. That's a much better answer than enthusiasm. Take that other piece of paper and tear it into 3. So you should have 2 pieces and then 3 pieces. And that's my talk. Thank you so much for... Now leave the other page alone. We'll come back to it later on, right? Now, as you finish doing that, one thing you must allow me today is the assumption that no matter who you are outside of the classroom, in here today, you are all creative writers to some extent. Maybe you're a teacher of creative writing, a student of creative writing, maybe you are well published, maybe you're just starting out. But today, everyone is a creative writer. That will be the easiest way for what I'm sharing with you today to make sense. You can worry about applying it in your actual life outside of this talk today. But today, everyone is a writer. And think on that, be where your feet are, as my grandmother used to say, and also where your hands are, because you need them to actually do these activities. And now that you have taken and made your strips, before we jump into the actual talk today, go to the 2 pieces, right? You have the 2 separate pieces. And on one of those pieces, I want you to just write down some of your favorite words. There has to be no rhyme or reason to it. It could be that you like the way they sound, or you like the way they look on the page. Maybe it's a pleasant memory of yours, but just your favorite words. Just put a list of them down, 3 or 4. And I will give you, I don't know, a minute or 30 seconds. I'm not good with time, so I don't know if I'll give you a minute or an hour, but go until I say stop. Okay, so you've had about 3 minutes to do that now. You can continue adding to any of these as I go on. On that other piece of paper, in case you haven't figured it out, I want you to put some of your least favorite words. Words you hate for whatever reason. And it's hard to divorce words of meaning, I know, but it can be done. I remember in my first graduate program, I took a sociolinguistics class, and a student wrote this fascinating essay about why church is a bad word. Not because of what it is, not because of what it serves as a purpose, but just the etymology of the language, the harshness, the Germanic root. So if you learn to divorce yourself from that idea, you can put any number of words in.
This is not on the back. It's on the-
Probably on the other piece of paper. And you're adults, and maybe a curse word is your favorite or your least favorite. You just, whatever works for you. Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right. So you can write as you are, if the thumb comes up, you put it down. I'm just going to keep moving forward. But when you do finish, just put these to the side. We'll come back to them in a moment. Because the bigger moment that we've been waiting for, of course, is what are these 3 tricks I keep talking about? And I'm going to go ahead and put them up here for you. Word robes, wax the wane, and writer's box. There they are. I mean, I have many more. We only have, did we decide how long this was? 50 minutes or 3? I have whatever that time is to get through these 3. But I have discovered these along my years of writing, and they have always proven, when I have applied them into the writing process, to give me results the most consistently and the most effectively. I've since adopted them as tools, but they started out as tricks. And again, as I said earlier, good tricks become great tools mature into those truths that you need to stand on when you create something new, something from nothing. And since one of my foundational philosophies as an educator is the fact that the one who is doing is learning, this is why you are doing what you're doing right now. You're getting a little taste of it. Now, what do I mean by these 3? You're about to find out, but I do want to take a second and have you appreciate fully the trouble I went to in utilizing alliteration for you today so that it would be easier for you on the recall. I chose the letter W for obvious reasons without realizing this would be the hardest part of putting my lecture together, was figuring out how to make the W work for the intentions that I wanted them. So thank you for appreciating that. I really am proud of this W use here. Especially with wax the wane, that's a very crazy phrase. What does that even mean? And well, I had to make up a reason, and you're going to appreciate that too, I hope. But we'll start first with wardrobes. Not meant to have any sort of tricky wordplay here. Wardrobe sounds a lot like wardrobe, and you know what a wardrobe is, I hope. If you were a child like me and voraciously read everything, you fell in love with the wardrobe with the Chronicles of Narnia. How many times I would look into one at my grandparents' house, but I was an odd kid. When I read The War of the Worlds at age 10, the scene in there where the curate eats out of the dented can of peaches while he hides from the aliens, I did that. I wanted that. So I got a dented can of pears, and I crawled in the back bathroom under the cabinet with a flashlight and ate just like he did and read in the book. And when my uncle found me, he was proud I had something to do with that as I teach writing now. If I had not ended up being a teacher, I'm not sure he would have that same sense of pride. But I liked to immerse myself in that experience, and partly came up with that idea from having done that. But I like to think of it this way. Why not ask yourself, what clothes, what do your words wear, right? I know this is simple, this is elementary, totally fine. Think about it for a second. What kind of clothes do your words wear? How do you dress your language for the job of telling your story to the world? It's coming from left field, but I've learned that this is a great exercise for developing style and voice. And this is a lifelong process. You may not be able to do it right this very second, but here's how you would do it, right? You would first think about general styles of dress. I came up with this because I'm proud of the fact I come from a rich family of storytellers, lovers of words, right? My grandmother on one side gave us little notebooks and golf pencils every year for our birthday until I was at least 15. And what we had to do was anytime we found a word we didn't know, we had to write it down. And then when we would see her, whether at Christmas or go in the summer, she would go through the book and she would talk to us about those words and what they meant. And this is back in the day when the newspaper would come twice, right, in the morning and the evening, and we would go through the newspaper and find the word if we could. And then if it was in an article, we'd talk about it and then guess what the result might be and wait for the evening paper way before the internet. I used to love waiting for that sort of thing. The internet sort of changes that. I get very impatient now. But from her, I got that love of collecting words. From my grandfather on the other side, this sort of layman's idea of playing with language. When I was 12, I discovered the word only from reading. I didn't hear it, but the word was bewilderment. And I wrote it in my notebook, and I thought, I'm going to use this word from the context of the story, and I tried to figure it out. He was a big fisherman. He loved to go on boats, and so I was out on the boat with him and some of his friends, and I said the word, and I said bewilderment. And my grandfather said, oh, and I've never forgotten this. I know you've probably heard this before, but he goes, Chris, I like that you're learning language, but let's don't use a $10 word when a $2 word would work, right? I'm obsessed with this idea, which is how I ended up making this. I didn't want to use the monetary idea of it. Instead, I thought, well, what is a $10 word for me? That might be what a tuxedo would be. Like, what is a tuxedo word? If bewilderment is my idea of a tuxedo word, then I got thinking, well, what kind of word would be a bikini word? What would a Sunday best word be? What would business casual look like? What would a pajama word look like? And what that allowed me to do was come in the back door of creating and starting a story. If I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about, if I sat down and thought instead, well, how we speak defines a lot about how we are, in theater especially, right? I mean, I think playwriting is the ultimate of all the creative writing arts because it encompasses all the rest of it. But thinking about language is everything in theater and how it looks on the page and how you filter what you read on the page. So even though you may not have time to think about it as your own writing style, what you're going to do now is take a second, and you can modify this, right? You have whatever kind of clothes you want in your wardrobe. You may not like these labels. You can make up a label. But go back to the list that you just started and decide what clothes your good words wear versus what clothes your bad words are wearing, right? You can make it up. You can steal from here. Just take a second. The activity here is your participation in it, not necessarily creating a perfect, dossier of this language. But thinking about it does make a difference. So just assume for a second as a writer you're creating a character who uses those words, and how would you assign them the clothes that they're going to wear? I'm going to keep talking while you do that, but one of the benefits of this is for those of you who are writers and you struggle about separating yourself and the way you are in the world from the characters you're trying to create, this will be an instantly a way to age your character, to voice your character, and to make sure they don't sound like you, even though some would argue it's impossible to make that separation. But this helps you pay attention to it, and that's really half the battle. It's good to know, too, if in your daily language, like, do you use a lot of tuxedo words? Do you use a lot of swimsuit words? What does that even mean? Well, swimsuits leave a lot less to the imagination, right? So what kind of speaker does that make? Someone who uses tuxedo words all the time, how does that make you feel? If are they talking above you? Is it condescension? Are they talking down to you? It's almost impossible, once you get into the habit of doing this, to do it and not have an emotional response attached to the image, which is the goal. When you start thinking about clothes and then putting them on language, you are building an image almost instantaneously. So take a second and try it. And then I think you'll discover this silly little exercise is actually has profound impact on the way you look at the blank page. Because another way of attaching this, once you think about the clothes your words are wearing, is to think about the type of speaker. I mean, we have glib, you have eloquent speakers, you have loquacious, urbane speaker. I mean, there's, an indefinite list. And when you go through that and say a glib speaker, okay, what kind of clothing would someone glib as a character, what might they wear? Well, in my mind, I instantly think of something flashy like, I don't know, lame, like gold lame or some metallic glossy thing to it, not to disparage the material itself. But if I think about a glib speaker who might wear something like that, the image it paints in my head supports my belief in the formula that the wrong person in the right place makes a story, or the right person in the wrong place makes a story. I have not said one thing about what's happening, actually what their first words are going to be, but I have an image. I have an image of some glib speaker in flashy clothing. Now, where might I put them? Well, I mean, how do people talk at a funeral home? I'd say business cash, Sunday best, maybe. But if someone comes in with a lot of tuxedo language, they're going to stand out at a funeral. And suddenly, before I know it, I can start a story. I mean, if I want them to stand out, that's one thing. If they shouldn't stand out, that's a good thing to flag and go, maybe I don't use that much language of the tuxedo level, or put it back in the wardrobe. Fill your wardrobe up, whatever clothing you want. And before you know it, you will have a style. You'll have a voice. You can keep it, you can throw it out, but you have somewhere to start, right? And it's not trying to think about the story as a whole, which I think we tend to do. Like, I can't start if I don't know where I'm going to finish. Sometimes that works, but I don't think it's a great rule to start with every time. Just sit at the page. Octavia Butler famously said, start before you're ready. And I think that's brilliant, because get out of your way by just doing it, right? The more you think about doing it, the less you get into doing it. So do it so that you can be like Dorothy Parker and say, I hate writing, but I love having written, right? So get to the end part, right? Just sometimes jump in. Jump in by clothing. Don't worry about content. The rest puts itself together. So did you make a list yet of your clothes? You're building your wardrobe, so to speak. Excellent, excellent, excellent. The other thing that this helps you with as a purpose goes is it's a visualization activity that you're actually doing haptically, but in this case, it does help you isolate, and it helps you individualize characters by focusing on something as simple as their idiolect. We all know what that is, that speech patterns, habits of a particular person. I never thought about it until I did Underneath the Lintel, where I had to play this librarian who was Dutch, but every time he spoke of a country, he had to pick up a tiny bit of that accent. So Italy, Italian, German, and the only way I could do that, not knowing all of those languages, or French or Spanish, is to think about the idiolect, what little oddities, peculiar habits in the speech pattern could be portrayed in that character. And I've added that obsession to this, because if you're going to put your clothes in your words in certain clothes, you might as well have this idea of what peculiarity about that makes it worth characterizing. So now you have a little bit of an idea of how to think about the way you speak, whether you're a writer or not. And you can tuck that away for a second as we go to the second thing I'm going to offer to you today, which is Wax the Wane. I don't know why I came up with that necessarily, but I guess in sabbatical you get a little lazy, and this made me not be lazy to make it make sense. I know that you've heard of wax and wane, surely, if nothing else for the lunar cycle. And well, this is not that, but it is a bit related. I stretched it, again, making it alliterative, but what I really mean by this is looking at the word wax as increase and wane as decrease. And so we are going to increase, we're going to do more with less, with decreasing in other words, like compression or compressing, also known as restricting, eliminating, erasing, redacting, integrating. There are many different ways of looking at it. The tricky part of the technique, though, is that waxing the wane, in this case, acts like a repository. I mean, even though all of these are related, if you operate on any of them, they will produce unique results absolutely every time. Famous examples of this include Tom Phillips' Victorian redacted novel, A Humanities, which he did for many years, from 1966 until he just would produce the same book, but he had redacted. He blacked out parts of it, and every page, he did this religiously, and with the same book published, and I should have looked this up, but at least 10 different versions of the same novel that tells a completely different story, but depending on what he redacted. It's a feat. It is truly an impressive thing to look at. But in poetry, you have the renowned Tracy K. Smith's declaration poems, which are all erasure poems, sometimes called found poetry. I'm not going to ask you to do that necessarily, but I'm going to share with you a story of how I do partly that, and then another activity for eliminating that you're about to do. But I came across this idea before I knew anything academically about it as a playwright. And it was really accidental. In my MFA, my final semester, getting ready to stage my thesis play, my professor came to me and said, this is a lovely play, but we've decided that there needs to be a new introduction, like a new short scene that softballs it, right? Like rolls us into this idea of betrayal. And of course, I was young and full of hubris and thought, I know the story. Of course I can do that. This was 2 weeks out. And so I went home and immediately waited a week and a half and sat down to do it and couldn't do it. I don't believe in writer's block, so it wasn't that I didn't know what to say. I had too many things to say. And I sat there and I looked at the screen and I went, this is crazy. I created this. I should be able to write this. I know these characters. Is it the pressure? Is it because I'm expected to do it? Is it I went through many excuses and procrastinated. But I also loved writing poetry, and so what I did, apropos of nothing, there was no reason to do it, really. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to take this big theme of betrayal, and I'm going to take 2 lines out of the play that I really like, and I'm going to make myself write a villanelle. Because a villanelle is a fixed form of poetry, extremely restricted, and also verbatim rhyme, right? You have to absolutely have the line you want, and it repeats, and so it's like, it seems easy, but it's actually extremely hard. And so sitting down, forcing myself, restricting my ability, and then honoring the actual rules of the villanelle, I found tightened my feeling about the scene. So when I finished the villanelle, I thought, oh, and I had to modify the lines, of course, and they tightened in places, and I lifted that and put it back into the scene, and suddenly I wrote a 10-page scene. Now, it doesn't always work that wonderfully. And of that 10-page scene, 7 pages were cut, but that was okay, because my writing process is progress, period. If that's 100 pages, great. If it's 1 word on a page, if it wasn't there before, it's good, right? And for me, one of my truths is what works is right, what doesn't is wrong, right? In creative writing. Don't apply that to life necessarily, but in creative writing, it works. And so I went back, got the scene through, and I thought, wow, maybe I should start looking at fixed form poetry as an actual tool for when I need to focus and tighten, because the rules are there, it's still in the work, and I lifted lines out of the play, so it was doubly in the work, and it helped me get through. I'm not going to make you write a fixed form poem. Don't worry about that. If you want to, you can. But I do have another activity similar to the fixed form poetry that falls under eliminating that I hope that you will like. It's deceptive in how simple it is, and it sometimes will elicit groans from you, but I think it'll be all right. So what I want you to do is take those 3 pieces of paper now, those 3 little strips, and if you need to write, I'll put them on the board too, but one of those pieces of paper, you are going to write at the top of it, objective description. We're talking about descriptions here. So objective description. On the other one, you're going to write function or functions. And on the last one, you are going to write, don't try to say the colloquialisms, I guess you could say. I'll explain that in just a minute. But each one to a page, to a piece of the strip of paper there. Because what you're going to do is talk about this object right here. Do you see what this is? What is this?
Blue owl.
Yeah, blue owl. There's no worry about cheating. That's good. Thank you. Blue owl, right? So I'm going to put it, can everyone see it if I put it here? Is this big enough? I mean, you're welcome to pass it around if you need to, but what you're going to do on that first piece of paper is empirically describe that. Use your senses and objectively describe what that is. Blue, you mentioned, you can see that it's blue. What do you see? If you tasted it, I would suggest not doing that, but it would be a unique way to experience the object. But just take a moment, and all of the objective ways you can think of to describe it, put that on that list. I know it's not a big list because of how I made you tear the paper, but I just want you to get a taste of how to do the activity. I guess I could do Vanna White. Just take it from one side to the other. you go. And following suit on the second piece of paper, I want you to write down every function you can think of that that object might have, real or imagined. I know it's a fake owl, but think about real owls. And anything you consider a function that that owl does. I mean, it keeps little vermin out of your in the yard. You know, it eats rats and snakes and just anything, any fact. If function is confusing, then think of facts. What facts do you know about that owl or an owl? And then lastly, on that third piece of strip of paper, you would write down any colloquialisms, like any idioms that you know about owls, any phrases that include owls, any little thing of that nature. Like owls are supposed to be wise. And if you're my age, my generation, there was that commercial about the Tootsie Roll center, the Tootsie Pop or whatever, you know. And it was a greedy owl then. He'd 1, 2, 3 and ate the whole thing. So anything like that, any cultural response that you might have to owls. I mean, also consider where you are. I mean, you're at a university in which we have Odie the owl, and Athena. There used to be an owl on top, like a, is it? She was named Athena too, or did I make that up? Oh, Athena's the robot. And well, for today, she's also that owl that scares away the snakes and things over there.
I think our tour guides call her Athena.
Do what now?
Our tour guides call her Athena.
Oh, okay. So, see, sometimes I make things up that are actually real and I don't even know about it. I like that. All right. So you can keep doing that. We're almost done. Here, we're going to go to the third thing, which is what I call a writer's box. This is my attempt at putting it all together, right? Not just these 2 or 3 things I've talked about, but all of the things that help identify me as a unique writer, I put in this, because this is why I don't believe in writer's block. This is a visualization activity, and I've done this many times, and it's old hat for a lot of you, but you do not have writer's block. What you have is a writer's box. And what you do is you think about that block, right? You cut off the top of it and put it over here for a minute, and then you hollow out the inside of that block, like you would a pumpkin. And then on that little piece over here, you put a hinge on it and a handle, and then you put it back on top of that block so that it opens. You put a little lock on it, and now you have a box. And in this box, you put all of these things, anything that reminds you of why you write, of how you can write. You already can put this idea of the wardrobe in there. You could put that, it's like a Harry Potter box, right? It looks small, but it's just endless, the room in that box. In mine, I've put some of these things, and when I feel stuck, you're not stuck. Now, next time you have writer's block, just say, no, it's not. It's a toolbox. I'm going to open it. I'm going to pull something out of it to get me through, because the best way out is through, right? If you process and progress, it only matters to be 1 word and not 100, a lot of the stress is alleviated, and you take time to dig down in there. For me, some of my other tricks that I have in my writer's box, quirky behavior. I mean, I'm in the world of Southern Gothic, and my family is exactly Southern Gothic, so I do not have to look far. But it's, I mean, I have so many stories. Like my Aunt Lola, God love her, but she would talk and talk and talk, and my uncle used to read, my other great uncle would turn her oxygen down, and she would just fall asleep at the table, and then he'd turn it up, and she'd wake up and not even know what had happened. And that's quirky behavior. That's not normal. That's probably not okay. That's probably a lawsuit. I don't know, but doesn't matter now. It happened, and now that's in my box. So the next time I'm in a story, if it's in any related field like that, I go, maybe this will, even if I don't keep it. I think that's the other secret, is everything isn't permanent. When I used to teach the PhD Fulbright scholars at another university, and I had American students in every other culture that was in that program, I would often do an activity similar to this, where they would have to write and then turn it in, because on brainstorming activity. And I know this is not a published study. This is just what I observed in the 3 years I did that. The American PhD students, after I called time, would not even be a third of the page. And there would be a lot of erasure marks, and they just kept up because they were driven, right? And I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying what I observed, to be perfect, to have the right answer soon. But the other students from other cultures would have pages. They might have crossed through something, but they kept going, right? And I've been sort of trying to find a way to break that habit, which it's hard to do, but this helps me not have to stop. I can just get through. I just need to get through. It doesn't have to be perfect. This doesn't have to be the answer. It just has to move me. Forward is the key here, right? So quirky behavior, if I feel like I'm stuck, I just give a quirky, they do some weird thing. The last play I was working on, at the opening, they needed more stress between the husband and the wife. And suddenly she was sitting at a window and she pulled on the blind and a pack of cigarettes fell out. I don't know, she didn't smoke at all until that moment, but I was like, oh, that's weird. What else has she got hiding in these blinds? And then suddenly I had this quirky behavior of this woman who was hiding things all over the house. And it totally rewrote the whole play. I mean, it was a whole new bit of inspiration. I didn't really want to rewrite the whole play, but that was so quirky and wonderful, I had to take advantage of it. So that stays in my box. Characters who stutter, not just in their speech, but in their walk. Right? That's an interesting way to talk about stumbling. You stutter across the sidewalk. I love keeping things like that. Tense shifts make unreliability in a character. Unreliable narrators are fun. Silence, I love it. I hate it in the real world. I love it in the play. Ended up writing a whole scene with the woman who pushes a chair across their brand newly laid floor, which is happening the whole rest of the play, scratching it, and then she collapses in the chair. End of the scene, that's it, no talking. And the one time that it got done, that's all anybody could talk about. And I thought, well, if I could only write a whole play where nobody talks, but I can't do that just yet. Interruptions, those things work for me. Tools, actual tools that you might have learned in any sort of creative writing class, the obsession with word choice, your diction, which we were just talking about with wardrobes, punctuation abuse. If you've read my poetry, this is, I love to do it. To the point that my editor got mad at me with my short fiction because I kept doing it over there too, and then I wouldn't change it. Because I want you to know how to read punctuation. Like, you know, an exclamation point doesn't mean screaming, it just means intense, right? You can make a whisper just as loud as a scream, and if I left it in the middle of a sentence, it's because I wanted you to feel that when you're reading it. But they won. It's not in there anymore because that's not going to be published if you don't do it that way. Irony, figurative language, motif, hyperbole. Hyperbole is a great, great thing to use because it does two things. It also indicates foreshadowing. If someone says, I will never come back here again, probably you could keep reading because that's going to happen. They're going to end up coming back. So make it work for you. When you have good tricks and good tools, they develop into truths. One of them being, and it's not, my box has plenty, there's plenty of room for you to put these. You can steal these, they don't belong to just one person. But if you want to make a big impact, you go small. Specificity is where the true beauty of writing lies when it comes to creative writing. If you try to be too big too soon, it's tuxedo land. And you don't want to put the tuxedo on immediately if you can't have the rest of the story support that. But you can certainly have them put on a tuxedo. You can build from your pajamas to getting dressed for the evening. This is stolen from Coretta Kent. I don't know if you ever knew about the painting nun, big pop artist in the 60s. I love her. And her 9 rules for work are the most brilliant thing that have ever been written, even better than Kurt Vonnegut's rules of writing, which I also reference. But one of my favorite is her second rule, which is create first, critique second. Get it out, then talk about it. Don't try to do both at the same time because you get in your own way. So that's one thing to stop doing. But I also like Kurt Vonnegut's too. Don't bore me, right? Make it interesting. How do you make it interesting? Well, a quirk, that usually helps make it interesting. Abuse punctuation when people least expect it. Irony is nothing but the abuse of expectation, right? So whatever that you think is going to happen, stop and make the opposite happen. One of my other favorites is the inevitable and unexpected. Good writing, which is profitable. Stephen King has done both, right? I like to use him as an example because I think he is a great writer, but also very formulaic in a lot of ways and a lot of books. Still works for him, right? But good writing is that which is inevitable and expected. You go back and look at it, it logically makes sense, and the turns are there. We like murder mysteries for that reason. We like to guess it, you know, and we like it when we're right. But great writing is that which is inevitable and unexpected. Like when you read it, go, that made sense. I never thought that was going to happen, that turn would happen, right? I think this is the difference between what we consider fiction and literature, right? The good writing versus the great. You can make it happen. How do you make it unexpected? Add to your tricks over here. And then again, you've already heard me say what works is right and what doesn't is wrong. Now, you've got some things already that you could put in your writer's box, the wardrobe thing, this fixed form poetry as a trick. You may have some of your own that you can put in there. There's no limit, right? You just put as much as you want, and the next time you sit down to write, even if it's academic writing, even if it's a letter to your mama, I mean, whatever writing it involves, I think it could be applied outside of creative writing, like whatever your job may be. Stop and think, because if this isn't for what you put on the page, think of how you can put it to your person. This helps you identify liars, right? I think that's another good thing about creative writing. Makes you aware of people's motivations outside of literature. There are many, many benefits to it. But now we're going to try to put it all together. I want to really hear you groan about what's about to happen here. We're going to put a big bow on this with a quick recap and then the last activity. So you've already got these 2 lists. You've already got your 3 lists. You're going to use both of those. You're already off to a good start. Actually, I don't think I have to recap this. I think I've already recapped it. So we'll just use it as material for this last prompt that you're going to do. But get that single sheet of paper, right, that you have not destroyed in any way. And think about what's in your box. And spread out your list, your 2 lists with the favorite words and words that you don't like, and your about the object, about the owl there. And here's what you're going to do now, and if we have time, we'll share some of them. Your job is to write a paragraph, and we'll just say, I don't know, there's a creative writing paragraph, so 4 to 6 sentences. And what you're going to do is this, you're going to be the owl. You're going to write this monologue from the perspective of that owl. And that owl is at a job interview. They have applied for wing inspector. And you have just been asked to introduce yourself, to share a little of what you're good at and why you should be hired. Except you may not use anything you have written on any of those lists. So you can't use any word from your good list or bad list. You can't use any description under any of these 3 here. And yet you have to write a little tiny 4, 5 sentence monologue introducing yourself without using any of those words. And you have 5 minutes. And if you don't do it perfectly, you do not get to leave. So have fun. I'll try to give you a real 5 minutes here. I'll watch my clock. Are we cheating back there? Are we?
Wing, W-I.
Wing inspector, wing inspector. To really feel the burn, imagine if this were an actual class and you had a week to go over this unit and you had a lot more time to write things down on that list. Your saving grace is that I gave you like 30 seconds, so maybe you got around some of the things. But that's not a timer going off. That's all. You just can keep writing. 3 minutes. One minute. Seconds. All right. That is time. Although, isn't it nice that when you write on your own, you can just take as long as you want? No one's over your shoulder. But we have 5 minutes. Is anyone feeling brave and they want to share their little monologue? You don't have to act it out. Don't worry, just to read it. If not, that's okay. Everyone can leave with a B minus, but that's... Sure, perfect. Go for it.
Except he doesn't want to read it.
Oh, well, does someone want to read it? Will you read it?
Although I have no experience with aircraft, my ability to fly makes me uniquely able to examine all the aircraft in the wing. My predatory instincts allow me to be ruthless in my appraisals. Also, being essentially a solitary hunter makes me immune to social influence that might impair my appraisal. Finally, I can keep the base rodent-free.
Nice. Now, I haven't looked at your list, so I'm trusting that you didn't use words on your list, but I feel like you probably didn't. There's some nice words in there, right? Thank you so much, Bill. Anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about my fit for the position of wing inspector. First of all, I have wings, so I know how important they are to staying aloft. I also recognize that not all wings are feathered. So being a night creature, some of my best friends are bats. I often discuss their wing issues over a nice meal. So I believe that experience makes me empathetic to non-feathered issues and requirements. While I don't have experience with insect wings, I can learn, but don't tell the bats.
Nice. I'm glad to have so many wonderful academics in here. This is some great monologues. You all need to go to the MFA program and come into some of these classes now. Well, okay, you have an idea. I mean, it's just a taste of how to get into a story and get out of your way. Sometimes it means divorcing meaning from what words are, looking at them for sound, like Marianne Moore, the great poet who went with syllables. I mean, just There's always a way in if you're patient enough, and I hope these 3 can be added into your writer's box for future reference, whatever kind of writing you're doing. But I believe now I have to have a Q&A. So, the end, open. Thank you. I really appreciate your coming, thank you. Are there any questions? Well, I have one for you. Would you mind putting your pens and pencils back in my thing on your way out? That would be great. But now, any questions from you? I mean, I was pretty thorough.
So you talked about your playwriting process. What about your poetry process? Like, how do you come up with topics? Because for like a poetry collection, you need lots of stuff.
Sure.
Lots of topics. So how do you do that and kind of decide what form the poem will take?
That is a great question. You know, the truth is, for me, poetry and short fiction both stemmed out of my dramatic writing. I never wanted to publish a short story as a short story. They were always case studies for me, looking at character. And all the things that I couldn't say in the play, I would write about in a short story, and that was my background, so I could then use it and assume for the play, because time really is money in the theater. But that they all became, like for poetry, it was extensions of theme, like if I, like betrayal, and I just wanted to think about all the ways of betrayal. I really fell in love with fixed form poetry for that reason. But I've discovered that I've turned into a narrative poet, and basically I'm turning my poetry into 2 dramatic monologues. They speak to each other. But that, as for why I take the form that I take, I really don't know. When I was in high school, I was the newspaper and yearbook editor, and back in the day when you had to like tape everything out and cut it out, and I became obsessed with white space and like what it means to the reader, even though I didn't understand that then. So a lot of times I just look at it on the page and I go, oh, this shouldn't go all the way across like a prose poem. This needs to be short, like an article, or I just want this to have 3 words in it at a time. I mean, I just sort of make that up loosely. But that is how I started into writing for those things. And I guess I do believe in the magic of that it will tell you what it wants. The story will tell you where to go, or the poem. But I have really fought many times on keeping a poem as a dramatic monologue and not turning it into a play. And I know that seems silly, a little to squabble over, but that's the only thing I really adhere to is the idea of the dramatic monologue. But yeah, it all came from playwriting, because I think all of it goes back into plays, honestly. But yeah.
Can you read one of your poems to us?
I can't, yeah.
That'd be great.
Sure. I was not prepared for that, but I can share this news with you. I did just sign my book contract yesterday for my 3rd book. Thank you. Yeah. I misread it. I thought it was coming out in 2027, but it's coming out in 2028, but that's okay. And I guess I could share a new poem from there if you want, if that's okay. I just have to get to it for 1 second. It won't be in French. I hope that's all right, but let's see. Here we go. So, man, I tried to think of every possible question that would come to me so I would be prepared and not take up time, but this is good. All right, we'll just go here. All right. Let's see. All right, I will do the first poem in the collection. I know what I'll do. I've just published a few pieces. I have a chapbook that I'm trying to shop around right now, and I just published the first 5 poems of it in the, I can't remember the journal right now, in Tennessee. So I'll just, I can read those. They're not very long. This is called the Prodigal Psalms. And so I wrote the whole chapbook in the style of the Psalms in the Bible. And so each psalm, they're just randomly numbered, and they each have their little epitaph and then the thing itself. So I'll just share some of those with you then. Psalm 3, the psalmist discusses the problem of false sentiment. Hunched over supper, you wait with fork raised above the plate, as if it should anticipate the parting of the red-eye gravy from the day-old biscuit. Here, with fork in midair, you hesitate. It's your tell, unaware of what this gesture gives away or of what it takes as well. Psalm 11, the reader is petitioned to consider their respective traditional sympathies in the light of sentiment. We wear the mask and then we learn to talk. Our first words are kept to ourselves until our tongues and teeth are coated each in the same honey hue. We are children born and weaned off the belief that in these masks we appear larger, that this is the best defense as long as we never move. It is common sense to be afraid of that which is larger. We're imposing left standing side by side. The sheer number of us would be intimidating if we ate around the same table, if we remembered birthdays, if we could tell the truth without the lie. Out of respect, I wear the mask where you taught me it should be worn. The sin, of course, is in looking out of place. Yours you've torn at the brow, along the upper lip, under the chin. The eyes have lost elasticity to the point the sockets sag, to the point they stay bent, much like paper thinned by too much handling. It's a wonder your mask doesn't fall completely apart at the threat of a smile or the start of a cough. You don't wear it like a mask either, over the face. I wonder why you don't. Just take it off. You keep it too loose at the neck. Perhaps you mean to escape. Is it choking you? Perhaps it's your albatross. You value suffering on a slide scale, the worth of a burden according to its weight. You keep your mask cockeyed, facing toward the back door in the kitchen where the old handheld hangs on the wall. I'm not there to hear you ask the world, the whole world at that, to stop for a second, please. Because the phone, you believe you heard it ring. Listen, listen. Well, who else is listening? It was not the phone. It was forgetting how to breathe. It was remembering how to breathe again while holding onto the sweet tea glass, while letting go of the fork. It was the fork falling to the floor with a sudden recall of breath. You don't accept that the world will not stop for you. You're not kidding. The world should be distracted by the sudden intake, disturbed by the act of breathing as you were. Wouldn't that be something good? Well, did it stop? Did I miss it? No. And no, it didn't. The world does not stop. The world is not distracted or disturbed one bit. Also, that wasn't the phone. And in all likelihood, I feel you've probably gotten all the good you're meant to get outside of stray goodwill. You didn't hear the phone because it didn't ring. A phone does not ring without reason. A phone has to be rung. You like to forget the day to talk is on Sunday, that every day can't be Sunday. There's a whole week to wait, so there's no sense in coming undone yet. Thank you. You are the first people to hear any of that, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I'll stop now then, and thank you so much for coming. There's food. Stay for food.
There is food, refreshment food. We have it for at least another half an hour, probably a little longer if you want to stick around, or if